front. There's a lot of space up here and to move forward. We want everyone to be able to sit, and there's a lot of space.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon, everyone. Good afternoon. Thank you so much. That's so much better. We are gathered today to celebrate the life of a dear loved one of mostly everyone in the room. Was there anyone in the room that did not know Dr. Franks? Dr. Franks. So who in the room knew Dr. Franks? Wonderful. Then we are amongst a host of family and friends. So everyone, the first thing that I would like for us to do is shake yourself a little bit. Okay? Physically, shake yourself a little bit. Get the energy going, right? This is a solemn occasion, but I do not want us to be so dreary. Okay? We're here to be strength and uplifting and help this wonderful family celebrate their father and such an awesome and amazing man. Okay? Now, I have an addendum here. This is a little bit different than what I'm used to. I am a Pentecostal preacher. So that means I'm used to loud, rambunctious, vibrant services. So I'm going to try to be me, but not as much as me as y'all can't stand, okay? Because I've already been warned, are you going to be long-winded? And I so graciously reminded the person that asked me, am I going to be long-winded? I said, well, I'm a black preacher, of course. It's Sunday. Did you bring a lunch? Anyway, so now I'm going to get down to business. I think I have everyone's attention. The first thing I'm going to do is offer a prayer of consolation for this family. You don't have to stand, but I will ask that you bow your heads with me, please. Dear Lord of us all, we give thee thanks for the life of the one who has been taken from us, for what he has meant to this loving family and all of us friends here. We give thanks for the Lord of God and for the salvation that is freely offered to us by Jesus Christ. Bless us all, we pray, in the name of the one who gave us this prayer to his disciples. Our Father, who art in heaven, hallowed be thy name. Thy kingdom come, thy will be done on earth as it is in heaven. Give us this day our daily bread, and forgive us our debts as we forgive our debtors. And lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. For thine is the kingdom, and the power, and the glory forever. Amen. So we have a beautiful program here, and we're going to do the best job we can at adhering to the program that has been outlined before us. But once again, I must remind you, I am a Pentecostal black preacher, and I am subject to not be able to read at times. I may forget that. So I have spoken with Ariel many times before this in preparation, and she gave me a nice outline, but she says, you know, do what it is that you do. I said, are you sure about that? I don't know how much of that you can take. But I have some sense about me, as I worked in this emergency room, Belleville Memorial Hospital, with Dr. Franks for about 10 years. Some of you work with him much, much longer than that. But the 10 years that I worked with Dr. Franks, Graham says he was called in the ER a lot, I can count on the times that he saved my life and many other co-workers. Physically, I mean, it was an emergency room, so he really saved my life. And so for that, I'm grateful. And I'm going to extend that to the family. You guys know that you have an awesome dad. You know that he was amazing. He was your dad. But to all of the host of witnesses that are here, he was just as an amazing man to us. And we are thankful for that. We will have several readings. And in between these readings, I'm just reminding you, I'm going to interject some of me in between these readings to break up the monotony of what's going on. Is that okay?
Yes.
I come from a talkback church. Is that okay?
Yes.
Thank you so much. So we're going to go on with the first reading. Abraham Lincoln, and I just met this beautiful woman, and she has a demeanor that reminds me so much of her brother. Dr. Kathleen Franks is coming to do a reading. Following her will be her son, Taj. Now I'm going to try to condense this program as much so you don't get tired of me. I don't want to make you glad twice, because I was elected to do this. And so I want to try to keep faith with the people that nominated me for this honor. So I'll try to minimize me as much as possible. So after Dr. Kathleen Franks, we will have her son, Taj, for readings.
In this sad world of ours, sorrow comes to all, and it often comes with bitter agony. Perfect relief is not possible except with time. You cannot now believe that you will ever feel better, but this is not true. You are sure to be happy again. Knowing this, truly believing it, will make you less miserable now. I have had enough experience to make this statement.
Not everybody can be famous, but everybody can be great, because greatness is determined by service. You don't have to have a college degree to serve. You don't have to make your subject and verb agree to serve. You only need a heart full of grace, a soul generated by love.
Beautifully done. Excellent. Excellent. The strength provided by you guys is unwilling, and I appreciate that. Beautifully done. Now, for a young lady that I have heard her name for many years, working in the emergency room, Dr. Franks would have phone calls, or he would have conversations on the phone, and not to be ear hustling, but sometimes, you know, we work in close environments, and I would hear him say, "Gosh, Ariel." I would hear that on a regular basis. And so to finally meet this young lady in person, face to face, today, we've spoken on the phone several times, but this beautiful young lady who has she's been the pillar of strength for this family, and now she's the matriarch of this family, and we have to undergird her with as much strength and love as we all can. Let's actually do something that you may be uncomfortable with. Let's give her a rousing applause. As she comes to pay homage to her father, a eulogy by Ariel Franks.
Thank you all for being here today. It feels like an impossible task to encapsulate for you all right now what made my dad special and what he meant to me. How do I capture this man who was so smart and kind, solemn yet playful, calm, complex, in a way that is meaningful? The most natural way feels in this moment to share with you some of the things he taught me. My dad taught me that it is very important to laugh at your own jokes. My dad was the king of laughing at his own jokes. He was also very funny on his own a lot of the time. But sometimes he would make a joke that was pretty lame and would chuckle to himself pretty energetically, to the point that the whole room would end up laughing with him. There are 2 reasons laughing at your own jokes is critical. At the end of the day, you are your own best friend. You need to be able to entertain yourself. If you spend 14 hours at a grueling shift, or if several dark, terrible things happen during that shift, being able to make yourself laugh is a matter of self-preservation, of survival. Secondly, if you can't make jokes that are funny enough by themselves to make others laugh, if you make yourself laugh hard enough, you will bring others into the fold. When people laugh, they are put at ease, they are more comfortable, they are calmer. They will be more open to outside ideas if convincing is needed. My dad's humor was part of his gentle warmth that he exuded towards everyone. Thus, my dad has taught me the value of bringing revelry to myself and to others. My dad has taught me to be self-sufficient. Make sure you find a livelihood in which you can support yourself in the style to which you've grown accustomed. He said that very phrase, I kid you not, 8,000 times. It's part of the reason that I think me, David, and Theodore, while devastated, will ultimately be okay. I remember when I told my dad I wanted to take time off to dance in between college and medical school. He said that was fine, but that I would be paying my own way. I was terrified. I truly believed that if I crashed and burned, I would be homeless. So I worked tirelessly to get a good waitressing job to be able to support my dancing endeavors in New York City as soon as possible. Obviously, my dad paid the renter's fee and the deposit, first month's rent, also co-signed the apartment. But gosh darn it, I made that second month's rent payment all by myself. And I was so proud of it. Over time, it became abundantly clear to me that at any point I was struggling or needed help in any way whatsoever, my dad would support me instantly. But he instilled in me that drive to financially support myself, which enabled me to be empowered to do so. He raised 3 survivors. We are problem solvers. We view challenges as fun puzzles. This is all from my dad's impeccable parenting, of showing us the importance of being both inquisitive and resourceful as a means to promote independence. My dad has impressed upon me the importance of hard work. He was the epitome of diligence and commitment, and he was utterly relentless. My dad was perhaps always a few minutes late, but he was present for the entirety of his shift, as well as extra shifts. My dad loved picking up extra shifts as a way to make a little extra income. My dad never called in sick. He did show up to work ill, deathly ill, at times even, but would try to work through it and needed to be ordered to go home. I remember not fully understanding just how much of a workhorse my dad was all of my life until my own residency. And attending during my emergency medicine rotation was complaining about how hard it was to work 14 shifts per month. I was shocked to hear that that was somehow difficult. My sense of normalcy was completely askew because all through my childhood, my dad worked not 14 shifts per month, but 22. The entire time without a hint of displeasure or objection. All of his excessive work was done for the sole purpose of supporting his family, enabling his children to go to the best schools and later finish college free of debt, funding my mom's review courses so she could stay up to date on the advances in her medical field, paying for a multitude of dance classes, select soccer memberships, Kumon tuition, allowing us to go on expensive vacations to Florida many years, and not just paying for lodging for the 5 of us, but inviting our cousins and extended family to join. What else? Not only did he work overtime, but he drove the kids to school every day if he wasn't the morning shift at work, went grocery shopping, pitched in on our special school projects. When my mom was ill, he worked full time, and then he would come home and stay up with her the entire night, just to nap for a couple hours before returning to work and giving it his all again. When she was hospitalized, he would stay with her every minute he wasn't at work. The only sleep he was getting was upright in an uncomfortable hospital chair. My dad was a strange, difficult to imagine combination of being both the quintessential workaholic and family man. I don't know how he did it. The only explanation I can come up with is my dad must have loved working. I didn't realize this as a kid, because when I asked him if he had fun at work, he would say, "It's called work, not fun." If it was fun, they would call it going to fun. But the only way someone could have sustained the unthinkable pressures he put upon himself would have been to find genuine enjoyment in the work they were doing. And hearing all of your anecdotes, it gives me comfort that on some level, he was truly happy to be working as tirelessly as he did. My dad has taught me to think critically, always, in every situation, at all times. Because he always did. He never took anything anyone said for granted and was always fact-checking and corroborating. Never in a way that would make anyone feel they were not trusted, of course. It was always subtly done. He would say to his kids whenever we tried to pull any sort of nonsense on him, "You know what these are? Jazz finders," indicating there was no fooling him ever. My dad fancied himself a logician. Sometimes I felt like he should have been a lawyer. He was such an expert debater. He could outline his points so clearly, rationally, and skillfully that it was impossible to refute him. Similarly, he could effortlessly identify the weaknesses in his opponent's arguments and systematically disprove their fundamental claims point by point. Arguing with him about politics as a child was utterly miserable. I know some of my friends in the audience will disagree with me, but I like to think I've developed some of his expert argumentation skills. What I still need to work on is staying calm and not getting exasperated at the idiocy of whoever I'm debating with. That was perhaps the key to my dad's prowess. You couldn't doubt him. You couldn't doubt him when arguing with him because he always stayed so calm. When you got heated talking to him, you started to think you were the wrong because he was so cool in comparison. My father was, without a doubt, the smartest man I ever met. I'm being careful to say man here, because if I ever implied that my dad was smarter than my mom, I'm fairly certain she would smite me down from heaven. He was so knowledgeable about everything. Like many things with my dad, I don't know what his secret was. Perhaps it was his dedication to watching the news with almost as much devotion as he watched ESPN. He was such a purveyor of wisdom and spouter of truisms. Sometimes common sense isn't always common. Choose wisely. A trope in reference to being incredibly scrutinizing when selecting a romantic partner. Fool me once, shame on you. Fool me twice, shame on me. I felt I could ask him about almost anything, and he could give the best advice. While he picked and chose which practices he adhered to, he was always up to date on the standard of care. I had the great privilege to shadow my dad on one of his night shifts while I was in medical school. I was flabbergasted when he was placing a central line into a man who was in heart block, and the staff asked him if he wanted to gown up, and he said, "Oh, nah, I don't mess with that." With a silly grin on his face, knowing he was abandoning protocol. But I was also struck by his utter calm, how he was talking to the patient through the procedure as if it was no more stressful than obtaining a blood draw, and all the while effectively directing the medical team, bustling in the room around the patient. I was also, to be perfectly honest with you, completely shocked when witnessing my dad's bedside manner. When my dad talked about patient cases at home, it was usually recounting particularly difficult interpersonal encounters, which made me think he didn't necessarily like the people part of medicine. But witnessing his calm, gentle demeanor, his warmth, how he put people at ease, and emoted real compassion and empathy was truly inspiring. What's more, my dad was such an effective educator. My mom was absolutely brilliant, but anytime we had a question about something scientific, we went to my dad. It drove my mom crazy. But my dad's ability to hear the question, anticipate the questions under the question, and distill the answer into the clearest and easiest to understand points was uncanny. He was so patient, but could also sense the learner's impatience. And he was never long-winded, and he would never tell you more than you wanted to hear. I'm sure his superb teaching contributed to him being an outstanding physician. I am happy that I got to tell him before he died that I hoped to be half the doctor he was. Because if I am even half as good, I would be a pretty fantastic doctor.
Beautiful. Thank you. Thank you for sharing all of that with us. We're continuing on. We're doing a great job over time. We'll have 2 more readings by Dr. Umar. Dr. V is coming to render us a reading by Nelson Mandela, whomever Dr. V is. I'm sorry, I can't. I don't want to take a hacks off of that. And then also Theodore is coming following Dr. V.
If you want the cooperation of humans around you, you must make them feel that they are important. And you do that by being genuine and humble.
Courage is an inner resolution to go forward despite obstacles. Cowardice is submissive surrenders to circumstances. Courage breeds creativity. Cowardice represses fear and is mastered by it. Cowardice asks the question, is it safe? Expediency asks the question, is it politic? Vanity asks the question, is it popular? But conscience asks the question, is it right? And there comes a time when we must take a position that is neither safe, nor politic, nor popular, but one must take it because it is right.
We'll have our second eulogy by Dr. Bruce Hart. Dr. Bruce Hart.
Almost like Bryan with this thing. When I first met Bryan, I was a lowly 4th-year medical student, and he was a doctor. A lowly intern, but still a doctor. He was awe-inspiring. He knew everything, and he didn't act like it. He wasn't arrogant or anything else like that. He would just tell you, do this, do that, do what you're supposed to do. Yeah. And he was never mean or anything else like that. Even though you would do something completely stupid, he would stop you from killing a patient if you were that dumb. Which on occasion I might have. But I didn't kill anybody because he was stopping me. I asked Bryan where was he from, and he told me Baltimore. I grew up in Wilmington, Delaware, and we got ran out of Baltimore when I was a young guy, which was like a long time ago. Most of you people weren't even born then. And there used to be a show called Homicide, Life on the Streets, which was in Baltimore. Scared the hell out of me when he told me he was from Baltimore. I knew the guy was smart, he was brilliant, he looked good and everything else, had more curly hair than he did, and everything else like that. He was just as smart as this one here, and kind as her. But so he let me go around fooling myself, thinking, here's this hoodlum from damn Baltimore, you know. And I was a Vietnam veteran. I'm scared of Bryan, of all people. Later, I found out that he wasn't no hoodlum. I asked him one time, Bryan, you one of those Baltimore thugs, man? He said, no, man. I grew up in a nice neighborhood and everything else like that. His mom and pop raised him. He had one sister who was younger than him, and then otherwise he was like great, you know. We became friends after that. No longer was I scared of this guy. And he started to teach me all kinds of good things and stuff. He was a great diagnostician and a wonderful with history and physical, H&Ps we call them, exams on patients and stuff. He would just start talking to him and everything else, and that calm voice that he used and everything else, and that big old smile that he would have. And he would just start moving his fingers around people's heads. He sounded like a phrenologist or something weird. I started doing it myself after because it worked. You know? You just start at the top of the head, he would walk down their face and everything else, any pain, wrapped up here. And he was the only doctor I know who would actually check people's sinuses. And there's like 6 sets of them and everything else. He would check your frontal sinuses with those fingers, and he would go in and check your ethmoid sinuses, which are inside the nose, maxillaries. And I still do that to this very day, especially when somebody has a headache. And he was like remarkable with it. Teach you anything you wanted to know, and teach you stuff that you didn't want to know. He led by example. He would just do it. He wouldn't make you do the work like a scut puppy or anything else like that. But that was Bryan. He's a caring physician and co-worker, and all of it. I think everybody knows that Bryan would do anything for you pretty much if he could. He was a crazy man with the work, though. You know? And one time I thought I'd call him up years later and said, call him up and surprise him and say, hey, old dude, I worked 196 hours last month. You look at me with that big old smile and that smirk in that smile, too. Sometimes he'd look at you like, He told me he'd worked 210 that month and 220 the month before that. I could just put my head down. I felt like a fool. 196 hours is a lot of work, yeah. Because I like to go home and play and act stupid and stuff. But Bryan didn't like certain things. Computers he hated. He hated computers. He would use them and could use them. We had not a problem with them. But as far as getting one, I seen years way before you guys were even born. Bryan, you got a computer? It's like when everybody's buying computers and everything else. So no, he looked at me like I was stupid, Mr. Potato Head. Like, what for? And then he asked that, what for? I found out like years up before that, you know, his dad used to be a computer programmer or did something, secret government work or something. I thought he was a spy, and I asked him, Bryan, nah, he just worked the contracts for government contractors that were all classified and stuff. So he wouldn't let Bryan or anybody in the room. He put a lock on the door, which annoyed Bryan. Imagine being a 7-year-old kid and your dad locks the door and goes in there and starts doing some weird crap. I would have think he was like some kind of science monster or something. Who knows? You don't know what he's doing in there. You can't come in. You can't sit on his knee. You can't say, hey, Dad, you want to go play ball? The door's locked. And he's working, and you can't go in there and mess with it. So that's what he did. That's why he hated computers. Technology was not a problem for him. Big TVs with a great screen so he can watch the game. He loved it. Everything. High def, ultra high def, you name it. Higher def. He loved that stuff. But a computer by itself, it's the same with that crazy cell phone that he had. I asked him, when are you going to get a real cell phone, man? He had this little flip phone, like some kind of stuff from Star Trek in 1980. And he always loved it. He would keep using it. Fine, but you can do so much other stuff with it. He looked at me like I was stupid again. Forget that nonsense. But he could care less about that. Cell phones, yeah. This works. I can call. I talk to people. Yeah. They call me at work. I answer. I go to work. I said, Bryan, but you can do this. I don't care. Yeah. Well, that was his thing with technology and stuff. He was a pinball wizard way before all you guys were born and stuff. We finished working across from the hospital at a place called Doc Watson's Pub. And it technically was a pub, I guess. It was like a little restaurant with bars and stuff like that. Bryan never drank. Bryan was like a teetotaler, only if it had sugar in it. A pina colada with an extra like fruit juice is what he drank. And there was more fruit juice than pina colada in all the drinks Bryan ever had in his life. But he hated it, you know, but he wouldn't drink alcohol or anything else. And smoking was like an anathema. Only whatever he got from his wife, whenever he pissed her off. Going at it. Well, he loved her to death. It was like his great nemesis. He always tried to make her see something logically, and she was a very emotional and smart woman. And she went with her heart. Bryan would go with his head. He would try these logical arguments with somebody like that, and he'd lose all the time. And that's why we were friends, because he would sit there and we would commiserate. Like, she doesn't see it. Bryan, she's never going to see it. What the hell you keep trying for? I just lose it with my wife all the time. I'm going to shut the hell up. This ain't going to work. Let me go watch CNN. My Xbox is calling me, hon. I'm sorry. But he would argue with her and could try to make her see it. And that's why it was like he would see it. He always would try it. Ever since they got together. It was like amazing. The two of them together. He loved his wife and children and would talk about you guys and everything else. Whenever we would call him up and talk to him. Well, let's see what it is. He was a kind man. Mostly, I say. I put that in parentheses on my little thing here. And the mostly was, he called me at one time, he was very annoyed. He was like taking care of this lady who had a tiny little finger infection, and they gave her, and the reason he was very annoyed, because he went way out of his way to go back into the back, into the room. In those days, the drug companies would give emergency rooms and doctors and stuff, drug medicines and antibiotics to give the patients who didn't have any money. So he spent extra time to go chase down 10 days worth of antibiotics for this woman. She didn't follow up, didn't go see her own doctor, didn't go see anybody else. The thing got infected, and then she had to have some surgical procedure done on it. So she brings a lawsuit against Bryan. And I get this call from him, man, damn lawyers, I despise them. He really didn't, but he was very annoyed for this particular case, mainly because he had gone through all of this trouble to make sure that the woman didn't get an infection, and it cost her nothing. He gave her the medicines, the whole 10 days worth. He said, Bryan, you're too nice. I would have wrote a script for the most expensive stuff and said, bye, see you. But Bryan couldn't hunt it down this stuff. And that's the kind of guy he was, all his life. Loved him to death. I'll miss my great friend. I see him in you guys' faces. We'll have to come and visit you just so I can see him. And your mom, too. Thank you. Almost like Bryan with this thing. When I first met Bryan, I was a lowly fourth-year medical student, and he was a doctor. A lowly intern, but still a doctor. He was awe-inspiring. He knew everything, and he didn't act like it. He wasn't arrogant or anything else like that. He would just tell you, do this, do that, do what you're supposed to do. Yeah. And he was never mean or anything else like that. Even though you would do something completely stupid, he would stop you from killing a patient if you were that dumb. Which on occasion I might have. But I didn't kill anybody because he would stop me. I asked Bryan where was he from, and he told me Baltimore. I grew up in Wilmington, Delaware, and we got ran out of Baltimore when I was a young guy, which was like a long time ago. Most of you people weren't even born then. And there used to be a show called Homicide, Life on the Streets, which was in Baltimore. Scared the hell out of me when he told me he was from Baltimore. I knew the guy was smart, he was brilliant, he looked good and everything else, had more curly hair than he did, and everything else like that. He was just as smart as this one here, and kind as her. But, so he let me go around fooling myself, thinking, here's this hoodlum from damn Baltimore, you know. And I was a Vietnam veteran, I'm scared of Bryan, of all people. Later I found out that he wasn't no hoodlum. I asked him one time, Bryan, you want no Baltimore thugs, man? He said, no, man. I grew up in a nice neighborhood and everything else like that. His mom and pop raised him. He had one sister who was younger than him. And then otherwise, he was like great, you know. We became friends after that, too. No longer was I scared of this guy. Then he started to teach me all kinds of good things and stuff. He was a great diagnostician and a wonderful with history and physical, H&Ps we call them, exams on patients and stuff. He would just start talking to him and everything else, and that calm voice that he used and everything else, and that big old smile that he would have. And he would just start moving his fingers around people's heads. He sounded like a phrenologist or something weird. I started doing it myself after because it worked. You know? You just start at the top of the head, he would walk down their face and everything else, anything, here. And he was the only doctor I know who would actually check people's sinuses. And there's like 6 sets of them and everything else. He would check your frontal sinuses with those fingers, and he would go in and check your ethmoid sinuses, which are inside the nose, maxillaries, and I still do that to this very day, especially when somebody has a headache. And he was like remarkable with it. He'd teach you anything you wanted to know, and teach you stuff that you didn't want to know. He led by example. He would just do it. He wouldn't make you do the work like a scut puppy or anything else like that. But that was Bryan. He's a caring physician and co-worker, and all of it. I think everybody knows that Bryan would do anything for you pretty much if he could. He's a crazy man with the work, though. You know? And one time I thought I'd call him up years later and said, call him up and surprise him and say, hey, old dude, I worked 196 hours last month. You look at me with that big old smile and that smirk in that smile, too. Sometimes he look at you like, They told me he'd worked 210 that month and 220 the month before that. I just put my head down. I felt like a fool. 196 hours is a lot of work, yeah. Because I like to go home and play and act stupid and stuff. But Bryan didn't like certain things. Computers he hated. He hated computers. He would use them and could use them. We had a problem with them. But as far as getting one, I asked him years, way before you guys were even born. Bryan, you got a computer? It's like when everybody's buying computers and everything else. So no, he looked at me like I was stupid, Mr. Potato Head. Like, what for? And then he asked that, what for? I found out like years before that, you know, his dad used to be a computer programmer or did something, secret government work or something. I thought he was a spy, and I asked him, Bryan, nah, he just worked the contracts for government contractors that were all classified and stuff. So he wouldn't let Bryan or anybody in the room. He put a lock on the door, which annoyed Bryan. I said, imagine being a 7-year-old kid and your dad locks the door and goes in there and starts doing some weird crap. I would have think he was like some kind of science monster or something. Who knows? You don't know what he's doing in there. You can't come in. You can't sit on his knee. You can't say, hey, Dad, you want to go play ball? The door's locked. And he's working, and you can't go in there and mess with it. So that's what he did. That's why he hated computers. Technology was not a problem for him. Big TVs with a great screen so he could watch the game. He loved it. Everything. High def, ultra high def, you name it. Higher def. He loved that stuff. But a computer by itself, it's the same with that crazy cell phone that he had. I asked him, when are you going to get a real cell phone, man? He had this little flip phone, like some kind of stuff from Star Trek in 1980. And he always loved it. He would keep using it. Fine, but you can do so much other stuff with it. He looked at me like I was stupid again. Forget that nonsense. But he could care less about that. Cell phones, yeah. This works, I can call, I talk to people. Yeah. They call me at work, I answer, I go to work. I said, Bryan, but you can do this. I don't care. Yeah. Well, that was his thing with technology and stuff. He was a pinball wizard way before all you guys were born and stuff. We finished working across from the hospital, a place called Doc Watson's Pub. And it technically was a pub, I guess. It was like a little restaurant with bars and stuff like that. Bryan never drank. Bryan was like a teetotaler, only if it had sugar in it. A pina colada with an extra like fruit juice is what he drank. And there was more fruit juice than pina colada in all the drinks Bryan ever had in his life. But he hated it, you know, he wouldn't drink alcohol or anything else. And smoking was like an anathema. Only whatever he got from his wife, whenever he pissed her off. Blowing at it. Well, he loved her to death. It was like his great nemesis. He always tried to make her see something logically, and she was a very emotional and smart woman. And she went with her heart. Bryan would go with his head. He would try these logical arguments with somebody like that, and he'd lose all the time. And that's why we were friends, because he would sit there and we would commiserate. She doesn't see it. Bryan, she's never going to see it. What the hell you keep trying for? I just leave it with my wife all the time. I'm going to shut the hell up. This ain't going to work. Let me go watch CNN. My Xbox is calling me, hon. I'm sorry. But he would argue with her and could try to make her see it. And that's why it was like he would see it. He always would try it. Ever since they got together. It was like amazing. The two of them together. He loved his wife and children and would talk about you guys and everything else. Whenever we would call him up and talk to him. Well, let's see what it is. He was a kind man, mostly, I say. I put that in parentheses on my little thing here. And the mostly was, he called me at one time, he was very annoyed. He was like taking care of this lady who had a tiny little finger infection, and they gave her, and the reason he was very annoyed, because he went way out of his way to go back into the back, into the room. In those days, the drug companies would give emergency rooms and the doctors and stuff drug medicines and antibiotics to give the patients who didn't have any money. So he spent extra time to go chase down 10 days worth of antibiotics for this woman. She didn't follow up, didn't go see her own doctor, didn't go see anybody else. The thing got infected, and then she had to have some surgical procedure done on it. So she brings a lawsuit against Bryan. And I get this call from him, man, damn lawyers, I despise them. He really didn't, but he was very annoyed for this particular case, mainly because he had gone through all of this trouble to make sure that the woman didn't get an infection, and it cost her nothing. He gave her the medicines the whole 10 days worth. He said, Bryan, you're too nice. I would have wrote her a script for the most expensive stuff and said, bye, see you. But Bryan couldn't hunt it down this stuff. And that's the kind of guy he was, all his life. Loved him to death. I'll miss my great friend. I see him in you guys' faces. We'll have to come and visit you just so I can see him. And your mom, too. Thank you.
Here, the program is calling for a prayer from the officiant, D'Angelo Bell. Oh, that's me. Okay, so what I'm going to do is, can I be me for just a second? So when I think of your dad, and I think of how he raised you and took care of his family, and how he raised a lot of us in the ER and took care of us, I think of a hymn that I sing a lot of. And a lot of people in the ER know me to be a singer. So I think it's fitting right here for me to sing a hymn that reminds me a lot of Dr. Franks. Is that okay?
Yes, please.
Great is thy faithfulness, O Lord, my Father. There is no shadow of turning with thee. Thou changest not, thy compassion stay them not. As thou hast been, thou forever will be. Summer and winter, springtime and harvest, the sun, moon, and stars in their courses above, join in all nature with manifold witness to thy great faithfulness, be mercy and love. Great is thy faithfulness, great is thy faithfulness. Morning by morning, new mercies I see. All I have needed, thy hands have provided. So great is thy faithfulness, O Lord, unto me. That is my prayer. We're moving right, excellent with time. We're moving right along here with great is thy faithfulness. Your dad was such a faithful individual. Like you said, he was faithfully tardy for work. But we always knew when he got there, everything was going to be all right. Everything was going to be just fine. I remember this was a code situation. We were in a code, and Dr. Franks was about to intubate this patient. And I was standing there, I was doing CPR, and I think I had just stepped down, and someone else stood up. And so I was standing there getting my breath, and Dr. Franks was aligning with the laryngoscope to try to place the ET tube down this patient's throat. It was a nice code, everything was going on, people were hanging stuff, and people starting to eat, and Dr. Franks was constantly aligning himself to try to get positioning just right. And I look back at Dr. Franks, and his pants, he always wears pants kind of low. But for some reason, the continuous motion of him aligning himself, those scrub pants, I turned back around and I saw his white Fruit of the Loom underwear. I said, oh no, Doctor. And I got behind him. He never kept his cool the whole time. And finally, when he got that ET tube placed, when he looked down and I was around his ankles. I didn't get him tied, but I did get his pants up. That was horrible funny. And I do believe the patient survived. Amen? So we're moving right along with another reading from Dr. Chuck Auer. Followed by Dr. Auer will be another reading by Dr. Bruce Hart.
Things may come to those who wait, but only the things left by those who hustle. I do the very best I know how, the very best I can, and I mean to keep on doing so until the end.
Help me, Bryan. I'm the wrong person to call for that. The family has asked me to read a nice poem I really like. It's called Picking Peaches. Education, like freedom, has never been free. When we picked up peaches, someone else shook the tree. I was a picker, now I a shaker be. As I have gained, let someone else now gain from me. Let me shake for others and perhaps ease their strife, and not be a picker of peaches all my life. The end. Thank you. And for the family, I have one. In all of these dark times and trouble, something that helped me when I was sitting in the hole in Vietnam and getting shot at in my hooch and everything else like that. And it comes from my heart. I don't even need to read it. It's Invictus, William Ernest Henley. It's not as popular as it used to be, but it goes, out of the night that covers me, black as a pit from pole to pole, I thank whatever gods may be for my unconquerable soul. In the fell clutch of circumstance, I have not winced or cried aloud. Under the bludgeonings of chance, my head is bloody but unbowed. Beyond this place of wrath and tears looms but the horror of the shade, and the menace of the years finds and shall find me unafraid. It matters not how straight the gate, how charged with punishments the scroll. I am the master of my fate. I am the captain of my soul. Thank you.
We will have our third and final eulogy by, you have your father's face. Our third and final eulogy by David Franks, followed by his little brother again with the reading.
Good afternoon. Thank you all for taking the time to join us in the celebration of my dad's life. We appreciate the widespread love and support we've received from friends and family members during this time, and I know you guys also love Dad. My dad was a truly wonderful man. He was a wonderful husband, father, brother, friend, physician. I can recall from a young age wanting to be just like my dad. I admired his seemingly unflappable nature, persistent and ever-present smile, and good humor and practical approach. Dad was making us laugh all the time, and usually in unexpected ways. He introduced me to French when I was in elementary school, although I was studying Spanish at school. Dad, what are we doing for dinner tonight? Son, you'll be eating at Chez Frank's tonight. Where's that? We haven't been there before, have we? At your house, House of Franks. I groaned as he would crack up. Dad was the first and perhaps the only person who I didn't mind losing a game to. After our many games, chess, Risk, our annual NCAA bracket competitions, I would always crack up as I could hear his voice rumbling with that big wide grin spreading across his face. The winner and still champion! My dad was such a practical man who always encouraged us to think, to question, and to exercise our minds as we experience the world around us. He constantly reminded me to slow down and think about whatever it was I was trying to accomplish. His patient, methodical approach served as a blueprint for me on how I should approach all aspects of my life. I remember once after rushing through an assignment and ending up finding out it would be faster to simply redo it, I was reminded and could hear him winking and hear him cooing, "Ready, shoot, aim." In spirited debates with my siblings, if I would get frustrated and raise my voice, Dad would temper me. "Don't worry, Dave. Hold your powder. Your point will be just as true in 30 seconds after they're done." The thing is, he was right. Dad steered me away from illusions of instant gratification, showing me that accomplishments that I would be most proud of would be ones that I had to build towards daily, not simply overnight. I recall complaining to him about the rigors of coursework at the time and the amount of time it required to stay on top of everything each day. He agreed, but encouraged me to remember, good grades open doors, bad grades close doors. Do you want to have a choice? It's up to you. later, when I had the chance to go to a school that I wanted to go to, he reminded me, it's nice having a choice, right? After graduating school, as I prepared to leave St. Louis to head to work, we talked about the transition from the stress of a class schedule to the rigors of an everyday job. How to prepare for dealing with people of all kinds, to be flexible, to be malleable, as there would be no syllabus guiding the way. So he said, well, have fun, Dave, as we headed to the airport. But remember, they call it work for a reason. I can recall in high school telling him super confidently, Dad, I have to be very successful so you can retire by the time I'm 25. He's looking back at me and nodding, Many years later, after that first year out of college, I called him and said, Dad, it'll be a lot longer than 25. Just like you guys, I could hear him cackling on the other line of the phone. It's okay, Dave, he said. You build up and add a little more each year. It doesn't happen overnight. He was always encouraging us to build each day so that over time we could get where we wanted to go. Dad was always stressing the importance of education and the idea that knowledge was power. He was teaching us all the time. Whenever I had a question about something, be it math, science, medical, he would always take the time to explain and answer to me or point me in the direction where I could find an answer. When I was sick or asked him a question about something in medicine, he would draw a picture and explain it verbally, visually, breaking it down in simple ways and relating it to things I'd be familiar with, making sure I understood before he moved on to the next point. He would always joke that if I had any questions on art class, that's not my field. I'm no artiste. You have to go to Mom for that. I suspect his passion for education, for learning, is part of what drew him to medicine. One of the greatest regrets I have is that we could not see my dad enjoy retirement after all those years of working as he did for us and as we've been talking about today. When I spoke to him about his time off recently in April, it was weird. It almost sounded like he was bored. But I thought it couldn't be. A former coworker who came by to visit Dad during his hospitalization mentioned that Dad had said he wanted to work a few more years to him recently. I nodded. Then my head was thinking, what? Are we talking about the same person? I do believe that his coworker was right, though, because Dad loved being a doctor. He would talk about the challenges of medicine that engaged him. And the thing that engaged him most about the field was that it was always involving. He enjoyed the work, and he honed his craft each day, brick by brick. Like many other things, I came to love sports. Because I wanted to be just like Dad. He captivated me over the years as we watched game after game. I loved hearing him talk about players from prior times and how the strategy in a given sport had changed. He would build up the excitement of the game as it reached its crescendo, asking me what would I do if I were the coach, and explaining why a team did or didn't make a certain decision in crunch time afterwards. These lessons extended into my own sports games as well. I can hardly remember one of my sports games that Dad wasn't at, from t-ball through high school soccer. I would always try to find Dad at halftime. I wanted to hear his opinion on what to do for the second half, even when I didn't want to hear it. And I wanted to see what he was seeing. I wanted to be as close to him as I could be. Dad taught us about the importance of history and current events. He would always say it's important to know about what's going on in the world around you and what happened before you so that you can engage yourself. I love to ask Dad questions for hours and hours about this historical event or what was your take on the day's latest news. One day I came downstairs and I saw Fox News on the screen. I was puzzled. I said, Dad, why are you watching Fox News? I thought that wasn't, your station. He kind of cocked his head to the side at me and he said, Dave, gotta know what the enemy's thinking. my dad did not mean the enemy literally. I knew what he was saying because he reinforced it time after time in practice. You have to expose yourself to different viewpoints, ideas, and perspectives in order to make an informed decision and understand all the different angles around an issue. Dad taught me about love too. He never represented himself to be Rico Suave, but he had plenty of teaching for me there too. When he would see that I was upset about things, he reminded me, Dave, love should be effortless. It's like running down a hill or sailing with the wind at your back. When it's the right one, you'll know. Although I know he was trying to pick me up at the time, his words have stayed with me. My dad's unending devotion and patient, calm demeanor were such important pillars for who I am today. His consistent, quiet sacrifice to support us day after day, year after year, without the expectation of anything in return are truly humbling. I remember his selfless devotion to us and my mom each and every day of my life. Dad was always so patient and kind. After he worked a night shift, I can remember countless times waking up in the morning. Did you sleep fast? I told you to sleep fast, didn't I? Time for school. He and Mom poured everything they had into us, getting the best education possible. I can remember such large bags under my dad's eyes, only to be overtaken by his even larger smile as he shuffled us to and from school or an extracurricular activity before heading back to work. As a kid, I remember a nightly ritual of Theodore and I lying on my dad wrapped in a towel as we dried off, telling him about school or asking him random questions. We'd get up, his scrubs were sopping wet as he would tuck us into bed. Why would he do that, I remember wondering. And it was because I think there was nowhere he'd rather be. I envied his relaxed nature, his grace under pressure. I remember once my dad taped an interview of a quarterback we both loved to watch. The player discussed the approach he would take in the huddle. The player was saying, my biggest focus is that when I'm in the huddle with my guys is to always be calm before I'm going to call the play. That's because I know that regardless of the situation, if my guys see that I'm relaxed, they'll be relaxed. That's how I thought of Dad. Dad was relaxed and calm, so I knew I could relax, that everything would be okay. I yearned to repay my dad for all these sacrifices he's made for me as I got older. And a couple of years ago, I even asked him if I could help taking over paying for some of my college loans. And he politely said, no, that's a family tradition. And he paused, and he said, grad school's on you, though. I finally understood the remarkable nature of my dad's selflessness, compassion and patience until my mom got sick. I watched him care for my mom as her illness worsened while juggling a hectic work schedule and keeping all the lights on. I watched him lovingly tend to her and provide a source of strength that sustained her and kept her going. I watched my dad take such a terrible situation and make the best of it for all of us. Attentively looking after Mom and always smiling and asking us what we needed when he came home. He was calm. He made us feel okay. Mom and I marveled at these qualities. Well, we didn't know it was the last long conversation we would have at the time. She was reflecting on the last 20 months and everything that he'd done for her. She said, you know, David, your father is really a beautiful man. Kind of like what Ariel was alluding to. When Dad was sick and in the hospital, I was wondering how this could be happening. It just didn't seem fair. And as I could see Dad slipping away, I was reminded of yet again another one of our prior talks. We'd gone out to an event at the Fox, and Helen and I had gotten into a silly argument, and I said some silly things. Later that evening, Dad appeared looking solemn. We talked about it, and he said, "You know, Dave, I've always hoped the three of you would keep a close bond, that you guys would always stick together long after your mom and I had gone." Now at the time I was thinking, geez, Dad, like in my head, don't be so dramatic. I said, I know, Dad, we will. We just got into a dumb argument. He looked at me quizzically. And I'll apologize to her in the morning. He smiled and walked out. Dad is resting now, but I can feel Dad all around me. I see Dad, now in RL strength, an unswerving approach. I see him in Theodore, with his smile and never-ending ability to incite the room in laughter and strength that you've shown over everything you've had to deal with the last year and a half. I see him in Kathleen, in your calmness and serenity. I thank God that he blessed me with you as a father, and in concert with my wonderful siblings, will continue to make you proud. I love you, Dad. With best wishes, David.
bought a chess set so that they could play. Do you remember that? My 9-year-old son did not beat Bryan at chess. I do admire his confidence, though. It was fun watching them play. I guess we Frankses made good use of our time. I will miss my cousin Bryan. May you rest in peace.
I really value Dr. Franks' opinion about pretty much everything. And there was a time that we worked together where I considered getting a puppy. And I was talking about it with someone, and Dr. Franks was adjacent to us. And I just said, oh, I think I can do this. It's a good. And I just hear, ugh, win, no. And he swiveled his chair around, and I'm like, no, Dr. Franks? He said, no, you don't need a dog, you need a book. If you want something new, get a book. And that did it for me. If Dr. Franks didn't think it was a good idea, it was not a good idea. So I'm glad I did it.
ER nurse for a long time. I'm a mortal, so I too have a big mouth. But one time Bryan came in and he had an upper respiratory infection, and his nose was dripping constantly. And we're in the nurse's station, and I look over, and he's got a tissue stuffed up half of it, like hanging out. And he's just starting. I look over, I'm like, Doc, what are you doing? He goes, I'm tired of blowing my nose. I said, are you going to go to see a patient like that? And he goes, you think they notice?
So I'm heartened by all of you who are here, and talking to my brother over the years, I know how much he loved work, but in the last few weeks, I have learned how much you guys love him. He did not toot his own horn or anything like that, and I just want to thank everyone who joined the Facebook group and allowed me and some of my family to read the wonderful testimonials, the jokes, the prayers that you all wrote in honor of your memory of my dear brother. And the rally, the video of the rally, it just blew me away. And I know my brother was special to me, and I'm just very joyful that he meant so much to all of you. Thank you so much.
Well, I'm an ER nurse. I worked with Dr. Franks for 27 years. I put this on the Facebook post that my preceptors told me that he knew everything. And it didn't take me very long to figure out he did. The one instance that I want to relay is on night shift, of course. We had 2 cardiac arrests going on at the same time. They were put in the same room with a curtain between. Now, this was in the old days when we only had one doc at night. And it was Dr. Franks. So, at the divided curtain, he stood, directed this coat this way, this coat this way, and it went on for a while. Unfortunately, I don't think he wanted him to stop, but he just stood there and calmly directed this. So we were all done, and we were kind of standing around, and I just started clapping. He took a bow.
That was one of my charge nurses back in the day. Still get a little nervous when she says that.
So, I worked with Dr. Franks for and he came in. I used to be the one that got all the information on everybody.
made sure he was always scaling. We always laughed about how ashen he looked. He made sure he was lotioned up. And I always made him pull his pants up and lotion him up. When David graduated from high school, he had worked and he was so scrubby looking. And we made D'Angelo come in and shave his beard. And told him that he could not go in his green shirt. He always wore his green shirt, black pants, and those god-awful shoes. I will miss my best friend, but I know he loves you kids dearly. And I knew this way, and I'm very proud to see what you've all turned out to be. And that, but he was the best friend to everyone in the ER.
I was trying not to talk about that haircut, Trixie. I worked in the emergency room with your dad for almost 20 years. And the other day, he charged me. So I was about to tell me, I told him he could sit back down. His sense of humor kind of kept us all going, except that he enjoyed, on frequent occasion, telling me how long I had been in nursing. Unfortunately, I graduated at the end of 1968. And so he would say, so let me see, you've been in nursing 60s, 70s, 'You've been a nurse for 5 decades. But you knew when you came in to the ER and Dr. Franks was working that everything was going to work out just fine. And no matter how hard the day was, he made it.
Any more charge nurses want to boss me?
Okay, so since we're sharing, so we always, Dr. Franks, I work nights. For those of you who don't know me, my name is Karen, and I'm a night charge nurse in the ER. And I've worked with Dr. Franks since he started at the hospital. We felt like we grew up together. He taught me a lot. Always on nights, he would always come in with his cheese pizza, his green top and pants, always had the newspaper tucked under his arm. Even though when you thought he wasn't paying attention to what you were doing because he was sitting, had the newspaper reading, you knew he was listening to everything the staff was talking about because sometimes the newspaper was upside down. He doesn't think that he was really reading when he was really listening to our conversations and taking everything in about us. Dr. Franks had 2 phrases that you heard, all the time. If you asked him how he felt, what'd he say? Tired and all broke down. After he went in to see the patient and he would stand there like this and listen to him, his next word would be, wait here, the nurse is back. And sometimes I would say to him, but I don't want to go back in. So I found a poem that I want to share. And I'll try to get through this. Unfortunately, I don't know who the author is. His journey's just begun. Don't think of him as gone away. His journey's just begun. Life holds too many facets. This earth is only one. Just think of him as resting from the sorrows and the tears, in a place of warmth and comfort where there are no days and years. Think how he must be wishing that we could know today how nothing but our sadness can really pass away. And think of him as living in the hearts of those he touched,
For nothing loved is ever lost, and he was loved so much.
Didn't have time to do it. The lady catheter, I was a girl. And then she said, I was a girl. Pretty much anything else. Hey, Dee. And I trained Dee. He was so sweet. Back in the day. Dr. Franks, of course, was the smartest doctor I ever knew, and probably the smartest man I ever knew. He never liked it the way I talk, which a lot of you probably will a little bit later on when you go home, but that's okay. He always understood what I said, even though sometimes people would ask me what I was talking about, patients included. And a little guy came in one day, and he was a young guy from Australia. I guess he was out here doing some kind of training or something, I don't know. And I brought him in from the front desk, and I brought him down and put him in room 4. And I said, I was over filling out my paperwork, because we did this before the nurses had time to come in, because we're always busy in the ER. And I said, you need to take off your breeches and you need to put this gown on for me. And he sat there and just stopped for a minute, and he says, after I got done yakking at him and doing all my stuff, he said, what are breeches? I said, oh, I forgot. I said, you take your pants off. And I could hear Dr. Franks out in the thing, at the desk laughing, and I knew what he was laughing about. Everybody heard me anytime I was out in the back. But you guys about having me trying to herd me at all. Well, you can hear me, can't you? What I'm going to miss about this great man is I've not worked with him for a while because I've been off doing other little things in the hospital, working other departments, and just learning all kinds of good stuff. But what I'm going to miss about him was no matter where I went and how far I got away, when I needed to ask a question about my dad's dying of cancer, or all the other things that I've called him about, when my kid's doing this or my grandbaby's that, he would always take my phone call and answer my question, because it didn't matter what doctor I was talking to and who gave me the information. I always got my backup answer with Dr. Franks. And now I don't know who I'm going to call when I need that advice. But I'm sure he's going to be up there wanting to know, he said, this is what you need to do, because he always told us always what we need to do. We love him. Every one of us love him so much.
Thank you all for taking us down memory lane. It was really good to hear all these wonderful stories, and some before my time, and then a lot during my time, and all in between. So it was great to hear all of these things. As you see, your father was well loved. You have a huge extended family. Thanks to Facebook, you can reach most of us at any given time. I think I can speak for the room when I say we'll be available. We'll be available to the Franks family. Yes. Great, we'll be available to the Franks family. Simply now, I'm going to do a closing benediction prayer. Very simple. The grace of our Lord Jesus Christ and the love of God and the fellowship of the Holy Spirit be with each and every one of us. Amen. Into the hands of the funeral directors.
As the family has said many times, they are so grateful for your being here today. It's by being here you've told the family how much you truly love and care for them. And they didn't want us to conclude this memorial service without saying thank you so very, very much. And ladies and gentlemen, if you will follow me exiting through the doors on my left,